Hey guys, Matt Bell here for Electric Violin Shop. One of the most common questions we get from people right after they buy an electric violin is, hey, how do I record this thing? One of the reasons I bought an electric violin was that I wanted to get into recording. So how do I do that? Well, in this video, we're going to talk about what is the equipment that you need in order to do that, and then what are some of the basic recording techniques. Definitely not intended to be a fully immersive, you're going to graduate with a degree in recording engineering or anything, but we're definitely going to get you through the basics of what it takes to record your violin or your electric violin, okay? The first thing you need is a computer. Probably the newer the computer, the better. Audio recording is a bit processor intensive. You can get away with an older computer if you're not doing too many multi-tracks. Some people will try to do this on an iPad or a phone. You can even do it on a phone, but if you really want to get fairly in-depth on recording, you're probably going to want a computer, a laptop, a desktop, whatever, but something with a little bit of processing power to it. You're going to need an interface, and this is what a lot of people don't understand. I've got my computer, I've got my violin, I want to plug it, I got the 1/4-inch cable, I want to plug it into something. There's nothing on my computer to plug it into. And a lot of people say, well, I can plug into like the mic input or something. Don't do that. I mean, you technically could, but it's the sound card that's inside your computer is not pro quality audio. So you're going to need an interface. And an interface, if you look at the top there, you can see a Scarlett. I think that's a 2i2 interface. That's a super common interface. What that does is it allows you to connect into the USB input of your computer. You go USB from the computer into the interface, and then you can plug either a mic cable or a 1/4-inch cable into the interface. And you're maybe wondering why I have a picture of an ME80 on the screen here too. The deal with the ME80 is that it is also an interface. If you look at the bottom there, you can see the USB input that we've sort of got right in the middle of that picture. If there's a USB output on the back of your multi-effects, then it is probably also an interface. So you can use your ME80 as an interface. There's a number of multi-effects pedals that you can use as an interface. The Helix is one. So if you have that USB connection on the back of your multi-effects pedal, it might be an interface. Now, sometimes you'll need to download a driver so that your computer can recognize that device as a recording interface. And then you maybe need to go to the settings on your computer and say, hey, I'm going to be using this Focusrite, or I'm going to be using this ME80 as the input device for my computer. So then you just plug your violin into either the Focusrite or the ME80 or the Helix or whatever your interface is. You plug your instrument into that, and then that hooks up USB or FireWire or whatever to your computer. The next thing you're going to need is a piece of software called a DAW, a digital audio workstation. And this is a partial list of DAWs that are pretty common: GarageBand, Logic, Pro Tools, Cubase, Audacity, Ableton, Reaper. There's a bunch of these. And some of it depends on whether you're using a Mac or a PC. GarageBand and Logic are for Macs. The rest of those can be used on either Mac or PC. So I've got a picture of the interface or the screen from GarageBand up here. It's actually free if you have a Mac. It's an insanely powerful piece of software. If you're a Mac user, you've got access to that. It's right on your computer, or you can download it for free, I think. There are tons of YouTube tutorials for each DAW. Don't holler at us and go, hey, how do I hook up Reaper? Dude, I don't know. I've never messed with Reaper, but there are 1,000 YouTube videos out there that you can use to get started on, how am I going to get started with this? How do I select a channel for input? How do I do all the different things that I want to do? You're going to spend a little time learning how to do this. Don't be intimidated. It's not that bad. You can do it. Then you're going to need monitoring. So we've got a device to get sound into the computer. That's the violin to the interface to the computer. Now I've got to get sound out of the computer so that I can actually hear myself. And that is you're going to want a set of headphones. You don't have to have $1,000 set of headphones like the Denons there. But a set of headphones is nice and kind of necessary, and we'll talk about why. And then you'll also want a set of studio monitors. These are the Yamaha HS8 monitors that you see here. It's what I've got in my studio. You don't have to go that expensive. It's about $1,000 for a pair of HS8 monitors. But the deal about any studio monitor is that they are near field monitors. And that means that they are designed for you, like I can reach out and touch my monitor here. That's almost a little too close. But the idea is that they sound good within about 3 to 6 feet of where the monitor is. If we're talking about when I lived in Guatemala and I didn't have access to any of the studio stuff, I was just using my little Sony CD player as a monitor. And it worked okay. Like you could hear the stuff that was coming out. But when it came time to mix, you really can't hear well enough to get a good mix. I would try to mix down stuff on basically my home stereo. And when I would listen to it in another place, the mix just sounded like garbage. And the reason was I couldn't really hear because those speakers aren't near field speakers. They're not designed for you to listen to them within 3 to 6 feet of the speaker. When I finally bought a set of studio monitors to put in my studio, it was like, oh my goodness, like somebody just cleaned my windshield. I can hear now. I can actually hear the things that went onto tape. So if you can't hear what's coming out of your speakers with a super, super high level of fidelity or super high resolution, then you can't really be expected to know what you've got on tape. The next question, so the equipment is you need a computer, you need an interface, and you need a way to hear yourself, probably both headphones and studio monitors. The next question that we've got, are we going to run direct into the interface, or am I going to mic a cabinet? And there are pluses and minuses to both of these. I tend to run directly into my interface. That's actually a picture of my Focusrite interface there. A lot of people will plug their Violin into an amp, and then they'll put a microphone on that amp, and then the microphone they run to the interface. And what that does is it allows the amp to make the changes to the sound that it makes. Amps color your sound a little bit, and then the speaker colors the sound a little more, and the microphone colors the sound a little more, and the room colors the sound a little more. So you get a little more air in your sound, and you get a little more of the preamp sound in your amplifier. If you're using like a Fishman Loudbox Mini or something, they've got a really warm, nice preamp in there. The speaker has got a frequency range that it responds. The microphone is going to have a frequency range that it responds, and that's going to color your sound. And it's going to sound different if you mic the cabinet or if you just run directly into your interface. So that's a decision that you as an artist are going to have to make. Maybe try it both ways and see which way you like better. The other question is, am I going to run dry or wet? And what does that mean? Wet means it has effects on it. So dry means just the direct sound. I plug a cable into my Violin, I plug that cable into my interface, and what goes into the DAW is exactly what's coming out of the Violin. Sometimes you guys like using reverb, delay, distortion, flangers, whatever. So maybe you're going to run into your ME80 and then into your amplifier, and you're going to have some reverb on the sound. You're going to have all your effects on the sound before it goes into the computer. Now you're thinking, well, why would I want to record the direct sound? Well, the thing is, inside a computer, we've got like this, we've got virtual pedal boards in a lot of this software. That's a picture of either GarageBand or Logic right there. It's got a virtual pedal board inside the computer. So you can run your direct signal into the DAW, and then you can use the virtual pedals and amps inside the computer. The beauty of this is that you can use a technique called reamping. And this is how I record. I record direct into my interface from my Violin, and then I use all my effects are inside the computer. I use Helix Native. So all of the amp modeling that I do, all of the reverb, all the delay, all the flangers and phasers and wahs and everything is actually happening in the computer. What that means is When I record it, what's recording is the dry sound, and then every time I listen back, it applies the processing as I'm listening back in real time. So if I want to change that sound, if I say, man, it's got too much reverb on it, I can turn the reverb down in post. That means post recording. It means after I recorded it. So I just need to get my performance right. And then after I've gotten the performance right, then I can start really dialing in my sound. If you record wet, meaning that you put all your effects and stuff together in the room and then run into your recording device, and when you record, all those effects are already on your signal, you have to get your sound right and your performance right all at the same time. For me, it's easier to record dry and then do all my processing in post. Not everybody feels the way I do. That's why there's different sounds out there. So those are just your options: to record dry and do all your processing in post, or to record wet where you've already got all your processing done. Now we got to talk about input gain. When we go back and look, let's go back and look at let's look at my Focusrite interface right here. You can see where I've got a knob that's turned to about 8 right there. That is my input gain on that particular channel. And that's actually, honestly, the picture you're looking at there is for a microphone. That's not for my violin. There's another channel on there that I use for my violin. But we've got to get the input gain right. And you can see 3 waveforms on the side here. The top waveform, you can see the little line in the middle, that's 0. And you can see there's just a couple little tiny blips on there, and that's the recorded sound. To me, that says that your input gain is not set high enough. We need to dial that input gain knob up to get a stronger signal into the computer so that we've got a little bit of signal to work with. Now, we can go too far with that. If you look at the bar in the middle here, that's clipping. You can see where I've got some waveforms that have run all the way up to the top of the screen and they've cut off. That's clipping, and you're going to be able to hear that. It's going to sound like almost like a digital distortion. That signal is too hot. The one at the bottom is the one you really want. This one right here. That's the one you really want. So I can see the waveforms on there, but I'm not anywhere close to the limit of clipping. So it takes a little time to get your input gain dialed up right so that you've got enough signal that you have a strong signal to noise ratio. You're not getting some of that zzz underneath. If you don't record your signal hot enough, you're going to have to turn it up while you're mixing. And when you turn it up during mixing, there's going to be a little bit of noise just because electronics make a little bit of noise. There's going to be some noise. Well, that noise is going to get turned up too. So it's going to be a fairly noisy signal. If you use the one in the middle, like say you've got too much signal going in there, clipping, that's no good. You're going to have distortion there too. If you see the one in the bottom, you've got a nice strong signal there, but not so much that it's clipping. That gives you the best quality signal to work with. Click tracks. I know you classically trained folks see a metronome and you start shaking a little bit on the inside. You're going to get really used to playing with a metronome. When you record, you're probably going to want to go back and edit some things because it's unlikely that you're going to nail that performance on the first try. Maybe you're a better player than me. Maybe you're going to nail every single performance on every single try. If you do that, let me know and I'll get some lessons from you. So if you want to do any editing of this song at all, if you want to get anybody to play with you, if you want to add drums, if you want to, any editing that you want to do, you're going to need a click track. And what a click track is it's basically a metronome. You're going to set the tempo inside the DAW. You're going to say, okay, I want 84 beats per minute is what this is going to be. And when you start hitting record, you're here, assuming you're playing in 4, because who plays anything but 4? Oh, good music's in 4/4. Bunch of weirdos. So, yeah, you're going to hear that click track tonking in your ear. It's only going to go in your ear, and this is why we talked about having microphone or headphones and speakers. If you are using a mic'd cabinet, like we said before, say you've got your Boss Katana amp sitting in the room with you, and you've got a microphone on that amp. you can only record with headphones on. You can't be using the studio monitors because the monitors are going to make all the sound's going to come out of the monitors, and the microphone is going to hear that. So when the click track starts, that's going to go on your track, and you don't want that on your track. So the click is going to go in your ears just through your headphones, and then the mic in the room will not be able to hear that, and you can record that way. So you're going to want to get used to playing with a click track. That's just, if you believe me, I've tried it without a click track. When I was first started recording, I was like, I hate playing with a metronome. I feel like I'm always chasing that thing around. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at playing with a click track. And you can still push and pull your tempos a little bit, but it won't sound, when a person listens back, it's not going to sound, with an experienced player, it's not going to sound like they're chasing a click track. You can tell with an inexperienced player that, wow, they were playing with a click and they were chasing that thing all over. So it's going to take a little time to get used to that, but it's going to make editing your music much, much, much easier. So learn how to play with a click track, trust me. You can do what's called multi-tracking. If you have more than one input on your interface, if you're using your ME80 or something as your interface, you've only got one input, okay? But if you're using the Focusrite or some other brand of interface that has more than one input, then you can plug your violin in to input 1, and then you can put a microphone in the room and make that input 2, and you arm both of those. Both of these tracks are active, and when I'm recording, it's listening to both of these. It's hearing the microphone in the room, and it's hearing the direct sound out of my instrument. And I can blend those together in post, and I can get a really nice sound. I actually do this with my electric violin, believe it or not. I put it in certain circumstances. I will put a mic in the room, and the mic is actually listening to my Viper, which is a very strange sounding track. And then I'm running through all the helix processing and all that in the computer. And I maybe mix in just 5 or 10% of what that room mic was getting, and it changes everything. I got this idea from Ian Cooper and from Tracy Silverman. Those guys mic their electric violins while they're recording. Tracy actually mics his electric while he's performing. He's got a direct output and a mic output on his violin. So you can do multi-tracking. If you want to, you can record dry and direct, and you can record wet using your amp in the room at the same time. And it gives you a lot of options when you're doing mixdown. So the next thing we want to talk about is EQ and compression. There are EQs inside these DAWs. There are compressors inside these DAWs. You can see the windows here. All of that stuff, we've got videos on how to do EQ and compression on our YouTube channel here. You can check them out. I'm not going to get into all that here, but this is a super important thing to do when you're recording with your violin, to use EQ and compression to get the instrument to sound right. Mixdown is one of those things that you can mix for yourself. I don't personally mix any of my own original material. I'm a little too close to it. I send it off. I've got a mix engineer in New York that I use. And he mixes all my stuff down for me. The problem is, by the time I'm ready to mix, I'm so close to that song that I'm hearing things that aren't there, and I'm not hearing things that are there. If you are going to do mix down then yourself, then it's important to check your mixes on a bunch of different places, because not everybody has your studio monitors and your headphones in their house. So you want to, after you're done mixing, maybe bounce it to your phone and listen on your phone. I know it's depressing to think that people are actually going to listen to this thing that I recorded on their phones. Yeah, they are. So listen on your phone, listen in your car, listen through whatever stereo you've got in your house to check your mix to make sure that it's a good mix, and sort of aim for the middle. You want it to sound good enough on the phone, good enough on the car, good enough on the home stereo. All those things. So you're sort of aiming in the middle on that. If you guys have more questions, or you want to get really a lot more in depth on how to do recording on your violin, I do lessons on Skype, and that's a thing that you can do. You can hit me up here at the shop or whatever, and we can arrange to spend a little more time in depth and get some good Q&A for you. But Hopefully this has been a good overview to help you understand how to do recording with your electric violin.